Welcome back to Limb Driven TV. Today I just want to go over a few things that I always check on my traditional bows to make sure that they are exact and precise in order to make me a better archer. When I was first getting into all this, at age 6 to 7 years old, it didn't matter when I was shooting if I was being accurate. I just loved to shoot. But as I got older, I realized that I want to be the most accurate archer that I can. And there's just a few things that you as the viewer, as someone that's getting in and getting more serious into traditional archery, needs to know about their bow and about their equipment to make sure that they're getting the most consistent results that they possibly can. The first thing that's on my list for tips to make sure that your bow is being the most consistent that it possibly can is going to be a quality bow stringer. Now, I shoot a Bob Lee. It's my dad's Bob Lee that he had a long time ago, and now I'm shooting that. It was inherited by me from my dad, so I love that I'm able to use the same bow he uses. And part of the reason why it's still so consistent is because we only ever string that bow with this bow stringer that came from Bob Lee. You see lots of ways that people string and unstring their bows online, and honestly, I've just found the easiest, the fastest, the most convenient way to string and unstring my bow between practice sessions is going to be using a quality bow stringer. The second tip that I have for you guys is going to be a quality tab. Now, I didn't realize that this makes that much of a difference, but I used to go through tabs like crazy. I'd buy cheap tabs, and what I realized is that going back and forth from those different tabs, it changed my anchor point a little bit. So I just wanted to throw it out there for you guys. To me, it's pretty important. Some people would argue it, but just get a tab that's going to last a decent amount of time. One that's going to be consistent from shooting session to shooting session, allows you to figure out the little things, the little minute details that's going to help you become a better archer. Quality tab, make sure you have one. The third tip that I have for you guys is to have a bow square and the ability to measure your brace height. When I started tuning arrows and I started making sure that the bear shaft tune was the same across all my arrows, and I got so in depth on tuning, and one thing that I overlooked was how much my string stretched and if I had to adjust my brace height. So this goes back to years ago when I first got into tuning, and I would get a new string and I would say, oh, it's time to tune my bow. And I would get that bow and I'd get those arrows and I'd bear shaft tune those arrows. And then I'd go back the next session and I'd realize, wow, they're not really shooting the same. And I always leave one shaft bear shaft and I'd shoot that one and I'd say, gosh, I just cannot figure out why that one's not shooting the same. Well, it ended up being brace height. And it wasn't until my dad was like, are you trucking that? And I said, no. And he's like, handed me this bow square and he's like, you gotta truck that. It was like, seriously, you couldn't tell me that a long time ago, but whatever. So he told me to check it, and now I check it, and it's just one of those things. You don't realize how much it changes the arrow flight until you've cut your arrows, you glued them, epoxied the inserts, and you can't change anything. And then you're like, I don't get it. Brace height. If you're new to traditional archery and you haven't been checking your brace height, look up the specs on your bow, give it a check. The last tip that I have for you guys is going to be leaving one shaft bare. On the days that I just cannot get the ones that are fletched to fly straight, if I'm having a bad day, and believe me, boy, do I have some bad days. But then other days are fantastic. But I go through my checklist, things that I've already listed here for you guys. I know I have the same tab. I string and unstring my bow the same, and there should not be any issues with my limbs. And then I check my brace height. And I know that nothing else has changed. I mean, my knock is all tied in, and that's a whole different story and debate for people on whether you should use a brass knock or one tied in, so I'll save that for probably a different video. But I know that everything else on my bow is the same. So why are things flying wonky? Well, I get my bear shaft. It's the same exact setup I have here that is fletched, except it just doesn't have feathers. And because I bear shaft tune, and that's what I believe in to give myself the best flying arrow as possible, if I shoot my bear shaft and it's wrong, I know that it's me. I've checked everything else. I know that the bear shaft should fly great because it did when I tuned all the arrows. But it's not. I know it's me. And this doesn't happen very often, but there are some days that when I'm fatigued that I'll pick up the bear shaft at the end of my shooting session and I'll realize, oh, yeah, I'm too tired to execute a shot. And I use this as a teaching tool. I can use this at the end of my practice session and see, did I allow my form to break down? Am I exhausted mentally? This has a lot of capabilities with it, and I'm looking to probably make a video for that as well in the future, but that's my last tip. Make sure that you leave one bear shaft. You can check your tune and make sure everything else is consistent. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel. I appreciate every single view, and I really hope I was able to help at least one person with this video become a more consistent shooter. If you guys have any video suggestions, feel free to put it in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, and I appreciate you reading every single one of them. Take it easy and shoot straight.